Facing the Mortgage Crisis is a national initiative presented locally by Michigan Radio, WDET, and Detroit Public Television.
In 2008 in Southeast Michigan, 103,000 homes were threatened by mortgage delinquency or foreclosure, with an additional 150,000 more homes projected to be in danger by the end of 2009. If you're a homeowner dealing with financial problems, take heart. Joining me tonight is a panel of mortgage experts who are here to help you who are facing the mortgage crisis.
Funding for Facing the Mortgage Crisis was provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Welcome to Facing the Mortgage Crisis. Hi, I'm Fred Nahat. Here to begin our panel discussion are Steve Bancroft, Executive Director, Detroit Foreclosure Prevention and Response; Catherine McCleary, Treasurer for Washtenaw County; Greg Stearns, Manager Financial Education and Counseling at Lighthouse Community Development; Terry Gibb, Natural Resources Community Development Programs Director, Michigan State University Extension in Macomb County; and Steve Tabachman, Co-Director, Michigan Foreclosure Task Force. For our viewers at home, if you have questions about your mortgage situation, United Way operators are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 211. That phone number again is 211. Now, statistics show that in general, about 50% of borrowers in mortgage foreclosures had no contact with their lenders all the way from the delinquency process through the eviction process. And folks, it's a huge problem in terms of the definition of where we are. Steve Bancroft, let me start with you. We've heard about some subprime mortgages and we've heard about escalating unemployment. Is that the problem? Is that how we define it?
I would say initially the subprime was the major problem. A lot of loans were done that shouldn't have been done, but those are kind of passing through now. I would say that the foreclosure issue is starting to head into a broader scale of housing, a broader scale of mortgages, and the issue is going to be jobs and other aspects that will impact this. Yes, we're heading in that direction now.
And Steve Tabachman, what about the numbers? Can you give us some figures on where we are?
Absolutely. So your numbers began to capture it in saying that we expected a 50% increase in the number of homes in distress just in Southeast Michigan. Those numbers are actually statewide. Originally, at the beginning of the year, the Center for Responsible Lending expected 92,000 foreclosure filings, and we're finding that in the first 6 months, actually, we far exceeded those numbers with over 60,000 filings in Michigan, which puts us on track for what we saw last year with close to 140,000 filings. We are seeing the crisis very much as Steve Bancroft has described it, expand geographically and also monetarily to more middle income families, even some upper income families that are dealing with the economic crisis. Just looking at Macomb County and Oakland County, for example, in February of 2009 versus February of 2008, we saw, while Wayne County actually had a slight decrease during those two comparison months, significant increase in Oakland County, 25% increase in the number of filings, and a whopping 62.5% increase in the foreclosure filings as tracked by RealtyTrack, a national firm that tracks these things. So what we're seeing is different types of loans coming into distress, different kind of homeowners, but nonetheless a crisis that really affects not just low income, not just urban areas, but rural, middle income, and even upper income areas all across the state of Michigan and really all across the country.
So we have different types of individual situations, financial instruments coming into this process. And I wonder in the continuum of this crisis, Terry Gibb, where are we? Are we at the beginning? Are we nearing the end? Or are we right in the middle of this?
I think from what we're seeing and what we're hearing, we're still on the beginning side of the middle. We've gotten numbers from Michigan Works, as both Steves have said, unemployment is going to play a big issue on that. And our Michigan Works department is estimating in Macomb County alone, 10,000 people are going to run out of unemployment by the middle of December. That means they are going to have no money to be able to stay ahead of their bills at all. So we're looking at another whole new wave of people that I think is going to be harder to help, but not impossible to help.
And Catherine McCleary, you're keeping your eye on everything in Washtenaw County, but it's really a regional problem, isn't it?
It is a regional problem. I can echo what other people around the table have said in terms of the economy. Not only are we looking at job losses, but we're now starting to see that the original foreclosures that hit our neighborhoods that have lowered property values are a spiral for property values to continue to drop. So we're seeing in some areas that the property values dropping, someone does find a job somewhere else where they want to move, they can't sell their home. That in and of itself is helping the spiral for mortgage foreclosure. But I want to echo what Terry said. There is help there, and we can help, and we all are acquainted with programs and work with and for programs that are designed to help people.
And I think that's why we're here. I want to get Greg Stearns in here. One of the startling statistics is people don't contact their financial institution through the whole process. Why is it, do you think?
Well, I think one of the biggest reasons is they're embarrassed.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do. They're desperate. But the bottom line is they're just afraid that if they call their lender, call their servicer, that they're going to be put on the spot. Oftentimes when they do call, they're told, when are you going to pay, when are you going to pay? And to share with family members the problems, it's a very difficult situation. So we find a lot of the folks feel that there's that element of embarrassment. There's also the element of maybe it'll just go away. Maybe somehow the money will just come in that we can fix it, and so I don't have to worry about it. I think it's part of the problem we have with finances when we get into trouble. We don't know what to do. We don't know who to contact. We're afraid that somebody's going to ridicule us for the problems we have, which is I think an unfortunate position for people to take. But I think the embarrassment issue is really the biggest issue we find when we do seminars in various communities, that 50 to 75% of the audience is from other communities.
Yeah.
Greg said something that's very important, I think, though. You have to distinguish between those who are going to try and help you and those who are there to try to collect for the mortgage company. Because the people collecting for the mortgage company are going to be there like collectors. They're going to dun you, they're going to call you, they're going to try and embarrass you, they're going to try and do that kind of stuff. Whereas on the other side of the equation, they're not there to help you or to make you pay. They're there to help you find the solution. So don't confuse the two segments, because sometimes they do cross lines in some people's minds.
Well, the one thing that continues to stand out in this problem, and we're looking for hope, we're looking for help, but the one thing that we can get a certain bit of wisdom is what caused the problem. When we hear that many times we're the problem. Were we living beyond our means? We were expecting too much? Was this just found money that we expected to pay back?
I think that's a great question, and there are so many different elements of this. First of all, I think the subprime crisis, the kind of predatory lending that we saw around the state, around the country, are key factors that you cannot ignore. The unemployment that both Catherine and Terry pointed to is another factor, and then really the property values. Michigan is the second leading state in the country where 48% of the population is what, and I think this term misdescribes it, is people are either underwater or upside down, but in essence have a higher mortgage outstanding balance than an estimated value of their property. What we find though is that Michigan, unlike some of the other states, Florida, Nevada, California, we're less of a transient state. People are committed to their communities here in Michigan. People are committed to their homes, and that's not necessarily a cause of panic, but all those factors need to be taken into account on how we got here. Over time, you've seen different communities feel different stresses, and I expect in the coming months, you'll see not so much of the same kind of distress in urban areas, in lower income areas, but you'll see all the communities of Michigan begin to feel with this, particularly because of that property value issue.
Well, you talk about predatory lending, and I wonder about that because nobody's putting a gun to your head. You took the loan. What do you think about that?
I know that a lot of folks sometimes are wary of going to a nonprofit service delivery and thinking that somehow they're not as professional as what you'll get when you pay somebody. But this is actually the reverse. The folks that have the government certifications, that have actually gone to professional training classes and have gone through rigorous processes to get certified are the ones that are usually the nonprofits. They're certainly the ones that are not charging you up front. This is a case where the federal government has taken, and this goes back even to the Bush administration, where the NFMC program has paid for free counseling regardless of income. And I think a number of the people that you'll hear from tonight are at the forefront of providing excellent service to save people in their homes and have track records that they can document of doing work much better than some of these scam rescue
Because it doesn't make a difference how you got into the situation. I mean, yes, we had lots of predatory loans. I mean, I can show you statistics that indicate that very distinctly within the city of Detroit. It doesn't make any difference how you got there. The issue is going to be the same. I try to say this is a complicated issue, but it's real simple for the person who has the house. Real simple. They got a house, they want to stay in it, they got a problem. It's real simple.
How do we help them?
In Washtenaw County, they bring you home buyer programs, and we have a 6-hour class that is free to the public to learn how to be a home buyer. And we've partnered with Habitat, who then adds on some home maintenance classes to it. So this education is really crucial.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, but when we return, we'll discuss where you can get help with your home. That's next on Facing the Mortgage Crisis.
Thank you for calling United Way 211. How may I help you?
211 is a 3-digit number that people can call and be linked with over 20,000 community resources. We operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We are available in Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb counties, and also Washtenaw and Monroe.
And how did you hear about United Way 211 today?
Do you have the address at all, ma'am?
Well, we provide comprehensive information and referral services, ranging from child care to senior chore services to mortgage foreclosure assistance, governmental assistance, tax site, free tax preparation assistance, things like that.
Are you female or male? Okay, may I get your zip code, please?
Yesterday I had a call from a senior citizen whose utilities had gotten shut off, and basically I went in our database and was able to provide some resources for her to get her utilities turned back on.
How are you on food or clothing today? Did you need any type of food or clothing resource information today?
I love helping people. I love advocating for people. And I just like to help people when they have problems.
Welcome back to Facing the Mortgage Crisis. Joining our panel are Jamil Haj, Assistant Corporation Counsel for the Wayne County Mortgage Foreclosure Prevention Program, and Lorraine Brown, Director, Michigan Foreclosure Prevention Project. 20 minutes before John Hoffa closed on his Brownstown home, he was told that his down payment would be twice what he expected to pay. And as it turned out, that was just the start of his problems.
My name is John Hoffa, and we've been living in this house now 3 years and 10 months. The reason we liked this particular house is because it's so close to the woods. That and the fact that it has such a large lot for us, and we have a dog that likes to patrol and check things out and so on and so forth. When I got laid off in August of 2008, I wasn't able to make the house payments, and we kept trying to talk to them about it to reduce our mortgage payment, and nothing was, they were non-responsive to our requests. They take our information and say we'll get back to you, and then never responded. Emotionally, we were going through a lot of stress, uncertainty, concern of foreclosure, concern of coming home and seeing all of our belongings out on the curb. It wasn't until we actually went to the Wayne County Mortgage Prevention Program and actually met with them back in December of 2008 that we finally started to turn this around. The Wayne County Mortgage Counselor we had, her name was Debbie Hostos, and she was outstanding to work with us. She was just very, very meticulous and very, very patient, and she made sure that with all the stress that she's seen we were under, she actually was able to get us through all of this program and assist us in a tremendous, tremendous way. I'm more relieved now, in all sincerity, than I was when the mortgage was up at almost $3,000 and they wouldn't talk to us and wouldn't work with us. Now they assigned us a mortgage counselor to work with us, and he's actually done an outstanding job working with the Wayne County mortgage prevention people to actually adjust the mortgage so it's something that we can afford at this point in time.
Well, it's a situation facing lots of Metro Detroiters. Jamil Haj, let me start with you. When you watch that video, is there any hope in there?
Absolutely. I'm proud to say that Mr. Hoffa was one of our clients with the Wayne County Mortgage Foreclosure Prevention Program, and I am very fortunate to be working with such a talented group of housing counselors. When Mr. Hoffa and his wife came to us, he was, I think, only a couple weeks away from his sheriff's sale. We were able to postpone the sheriff's sale, and through the hard, diligent efforts of our housing counselors, save that home.
Well, Lorraine Brown, thank you for joining us. What is your reaction to that video? For this story, there's thousands and thousands of others that may not be going this well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think this story just captures the reason why we have the new foreclosure law. I mean, this is exactly what was going on. We at first hear that homeowners are not contacting lenders, but here you heard Mr. Hoffa said he contacted the lenders. And so we did have stories where homeowners actually were contacting the lenders, but were not being relegated or sent to the right person and just getting the runaround or getting a phone tree. And so with the new foreclosure law, it's now requiring lenders that they must talk to the homeowner, and the homeowner must contact the lender and the housing counselor and must talk to the homeowner. They have 90 days to do that and to work out and negotiate and work out some kind of loan modification so the homeowner can save the home.
So this law is in effect, a new Michigan law right now. Has it been in effect in a while? And how do we get the word out to folks that this is something that they can afford themselves the benefit of?
Yeah. Became effective July 5th. The governor signed it into law on May 22nd. Became effective July 5th. And it's being implemented now. And what's required now is that before any lender can proceed to or initiate any kind of foreclosure sale, they must send out a written notice to the homeowner saying you're in default, and you have an opportunity in 90 days to negotiate with us to avoid foreclosure. You have 14 days to contact a housing counselor and contact us and set up a meeting date so we can come up with a plan. And also, if in fact we cannot come up with any kind of agreement, the statute also allows a formula for the lenders to comply with to see if the homeowner would be eligible for a loan modification program.
Greg, I know that you work in counseling, and once the folks get into this process, what's the first thing that you should do? The first thing you should do once you take this step with a counselor?
The first thing you need to do, even before you call the counselor, is call your servicer. Let them know what your situation is. Now, that's sometimes a very difficult situation because the number that you usually get is going to be the customer service or collections department. But you want to let them know what the problem is, and oftentimes they will give you some direction. You may be facing a situation where they're going to be telling you, well, when are you going to make the next payment? At that point, we usually counsel them to, don't continue on the conversation because it's just going to exacerbate the situation and make it more difficult for you. The other thing you want to do is you want to make sure you open your mail. You asked me earlier about why people don't open their mail. There's a lot of reasons on that, but particularly with the new law, there's letters coming in that require them to respond back to their the designated agent who is going to handle the case, usually the attorney that's representing the lender, and they have 14 days to respond. So they really need to make certain that they open the mail that comes in, if it's from one of the attorneys or from the servicer. Don't let it sit there. A lot of folks are afraid to open that mail. Open it and then respond immediately if it's that 14-day notice. And it's very clear in there. It makes reference to the law. It makes reference to the steps they need to take. They're sent a list of housing counselors from HUD and from the state, and they're to contact one of those, and you should contact the one that is closest to you. But I think I can't say it enough. Open the mail, make the phone calls, and the other thing to do is call the housing counselor, because a lot of folks are just not adept at being able to navigate through the system. They get tired of calling the collections department, hearing the same message over and over again. I think all of us here would advocate the first thing you need to do after you've taken those steps is call one of the housing counselors that's on that list, a HUD or state housing counselor, so that you can work with them. We're trained counselors. We know we have phone numbers that the average homeowner does not have that we can then call and start the process. We do seminars. We collect a lot of information to make certain that the plans that we're putting together are accurate and acceptable to the lenders. So those are just a few of the steps that they need to begin to take.
Is there a difference between a HUD counselor or a state counselor, for example?
Well, there are certified counselors. HUD and MSHDA, plus some national organizations, are doing certification of housing counselors. And these counselors will either be working for government, the county, the city, MSU Extension, or they will be working with a nonprofit. But we're really recommending, the situation that we saw in the video was one of the clients and customers of Wayne County. In each of our counties, in Washtenaw County, we do have certified housing counselors. They are very effective. If anyone can get through the red tape with your lender and you can't always be successful, usually about half the time we are successful. But in half the time, we're able to get through the red tape, we're able to do a workout agreement with the lender, we're able to work with their loss mitigation department and actually rework the terms of the mortgage so that it is affordable for our customer. Our housing counselors are very well trained. Their training is extensive. My counselors have gone out of state to the national counseling training seminars for a week-long, in-depth training. The materials that they have brought back are invaluable. We work regionally and we work in a network so that we know all of the phone numbers that Greg was alluding to. The counselors are effective, they're competent, and they're very caring and non-judgmental. So when you get that letter, 14 days is your time period. It's a very short period of time. Call one of the housing counselors. If you call a housing counselor where they ask you to pay up front, it's probably a scam. You can call the United Way 211 or call your local treasurer, call your local MSU Extension office.
Well, I guess I wonder, do we have enough counselors? Are there enough people on the ground to help the enormity of this problem, Jamil?
Well, the counselors are doing God's work. Unfortunately, in southeastern Michigan, we're talking about Wayne, Oakland, Washtenaw, Macomb County, there are only about 65 certified housing counselors, and we're working on getting funds to certify additional counselors and bring additional resources to the area. But at the top of the hour, you said 150,000 mortgage foreclosures in southeastern Michigan. Imagine that 65 housing counselors dealing with all of that.
One of the other things for the increased capacity of housing counselors, granted the bill, the new law did not provide for funding for increased housing counselors. That would have been wonderful. But the statewide Michigan Foreclosure Task Force that Steve Tabachman is the co-director on, I know they're working on contacting private funders to increase funding so that they can get funding so that we can have an opportunity to increase housing councils throughout the state of Michigan. I know currently they've just gotten funding to have AmeriCorps, to set up AmeriCorps folks who can be trained as housing counselors. So that's in the works through the task force, the statewide task force.
Terry, in the work that you're doing, what kinds of things are people facing, and how are they dealing with these scam operations? Are people calling on the phone and offering people a remedy, help? How are they being identified as people that may be subject to a scam?
Well, what we're finding is what we're hearing. In fact, one of my housing coordinator just had a meeting with a realtor who has been going door to door, talking and saying, "Oh, well, we can help you," And so that's one way they're doing it, because all of the foreclosure sales, sheriff sales, required to be advertised in the newspaper, and that's open to anybody to look at and see. And so they get called, you know, at any time of the day or night, saying that, oh, we can help you, we saw your name in the paper and we can help you immediately, just, you know, send us the money and away we go. And in fact, we were at a foreclosure fair in Warren on Monday night, and one gentleman came up and said that he had paid $1,700 to a company that was supposed to help him. We had never heard of the company, anybody there, and he was concerned because they hadn't done anything for him yet. And it's been several months. So it's a real issue, and unfortunately getting the word out about the nonprofit agencies that are doing this work is you would think it'd be easy, but it's not. It's hard. We have a lot of people that said, I just heard about you. We've been doing this work for over 2 years now, and they just heard about our services. So it's going to take a lot of efforts. Yes, we need more counselors, absolutely. We just added 2, and we've seen over 500 people in the first 6 months of '09 alone with those 5 counselors.
Yeah. Are there with the nonprofit agencies, are there fees, or do you pay out-of-pocket money to help yourself resolve this situation?
No.
No. With the government and nonprofits, residents are not charged a fee. What Mr. Ficano says in terms of our Wayne County program, it's your Wayne County tax dollars that work for you, as is the case with the other county programs. So you do not have to pay for housing counseling.
I also like to add too, in terms of, you know, the foreclosure rescue scam folks really sort of evolved themselves, you know, changed themselves given the climate. I mean, they were always there. They're always there before the crisis. First, they were more of consultant people to help you get a loan or get a mortgage, and they don't do it, or they strip what's called equity theft. They strip the equity and they leave. But now they've evolved to, we're now this loan modification program, where we will definitely guarantee a loan modification program for you. But one thing I wanted to emphasize is that the work that they actually are doing can potentially be illegal. I don't want to say they're all illegal, because there might be some for-profit groups that are not violating the law. But in Michigan, there's what's called the Michigan Credit Repair Protective Services, where if you're involved with being a mediator with any lender or creditor to fix your mortgage or work with your mortgage, you cannot take money up front until the work is done. And a lot of these outfits, what they do is they ask you to pay money, and we have clients, as a legal services attorney, have clients come in here who have paid $5,000 up front and the work is not done. That's violating the Michigan Credit Protective Services Act.
So people should be aware of that. You mentioned taxes. I wonder what role taxes play in this. Catherine, in your job, if you can't pay the mortgage, you're certainly going to have a problem paying taxes.
Well, the taxes play a very large role, and that's what we learned in Washtenaw County years ago, and that's how we learned how to help people modify their mortgages. Some people have their taxes escrowed, so they may be in trouble only with the mortgage company. Other people do not have their taxes escrowed. In fact, one of the signs of a predatory loan was they wouldn't escrow the taxes.
Yes.
So you could be in trouble with just tax foreclosure or tax and mortgage foreclosure. And every county treasurer is authorized and has the responsibility in the state of Michigan to collect delinquent taxes. And in Washtenaw County, we put that collection of taxes into a position so that we can prevent mortgage foreclosure. We will do whatever it takes to prevent, a tax foreclosure. We'll do whatever it takes to prevent a tax foreclosure. We help people with partial payment plans. We have special services for people who are senior citizens or veterans. We do automatic deductions from people's bank accounts. So we've put a lot of services in place to help both with the taxes, and then that's what overflowed to help with the mortgage foreclosure.
It seems like we have a crisis of inaction in the work that you're doing. How do you encourage people to just, in the video, Mr. Hoffa was taking action he couldn't get through, and your program helped him. How do you encourage people to just make a phone call and be brave enough to stand up and say, what am I going to do here?
Well, what we've found in the Wayne County Mortgage Foreclosure Prevention Program is that it really needs to be a grassroots outreach. And when I look back at our outreach events in April and May, we did 39 outreach events where we're going into UAW halls, AFL-CIO halls, we're going into employee assistance programs, public libraries, wherever we can get an audience. We're going into, doing town halls within various municipalities in Wayne County. We're trying to get an audience with the people that need to hear this information. And really that's, I think, what works. And this is all part of it too, and being able to publicize this in such a broad-ranging public manner. It's very helpful, and we're very appreciative.
There's also, I think, a catch-22 in here. If we do a lot of marketing, we get more calls. We get more calls, there's more need for help. We don't have the counselors to handle that now. So there's a real need to be able to increase the number of counselors that can serve the public. I mean, the numbers you talk about show just how great that need is. Even if we had 50% of those people calling, we'd still be looking at 75,000 calls coming in over the course of 2009. That's just an enormous number of people looking for help. So if we're doing a lot of marketing, getting the word out, which we need to be doing, we do need to back that up with additional counselors.
Well, I think that's all, I guess, our goal as a region. Listen, we're going to take another break, but when we return, we'll continue discussing ways of saving your home from foreclosure. That's next on Facing the Mortgage Crisis.
Thank you for calling United Way 211. How may I help you?
When a person calls 211, the operator will guide you through a predetermined set of questions to best assess the need of the caller. One of the things that we're going to ask is zip code. We want to be able to identify resources that are in close proximity to the caller's home.
Have you tried to apply for Medicaid?
Okay, and their fees are based on the ability to pay, but they do accept most insurances.
There was a caller, young lady, 17 years old, had 2 children, was living with her grandparents. Her grandparents were transitioning to a senior living facility. Needed to provide her with some shelter and an agency that could assist her with job placement, some basic life stabilization, because obviously at 17 with 2 children, she was having a certain degree of difficulties. Well, that's a really good thing. So you have that family support system. I myself and several co-workers advocated with several agencies to try to get her into some placement, to provide her with not only shelter, but some job training programs, some further educational opportunities. And after, it took us a while, but we were successful in the end.
And welcome back to Facing the Mortgage Crisis. I'm Fred Nahat. Margaret Singleton ran marathons, traveled around the world, and single-handedly raised a mentally and physically impaired child who was abandoned on the streets when she was only 2 weeks old. But Margaret faced her greatest challenge when illness forced her to prematurely retire.
My name is Margaret Singleton. I've been living here now for about 19 years. I have a handicapped daughter that I've raised ever since she was 6 months, and it's just been her and I here.
What month is Thanksgiving on? No? Okay, that's good. Very good.
I used to work at the Board of Education, and I was ill, which I really didn't know exactly what was the problem with my illness. And I just kept getting sicker, and that was in 2005. So finally, in 2006, I had to retire because of my illness, and I had sarcoidosis, which is a lung problem. And making, my mortgage was fine until I just stopped working. And when I stopped working because of my illness, my income just completely stopped.
Let's count. 1, 2, 3.
I was recommended to call United Way, and they did give me a number to call. I called them, and they just said, okay, we're going to try to help you. They finally accepted to do a modification, and it took them exactly over about 6 or 7 months just to go through the modification. So that was more income, more, on my house. So, but it finally went through after 6 months.
Which one has the T in it? Okay.
Now I'm settled, and I'm comfortable now with the outcome of it. You have to be persistent. You have to go out there and you have to find all of the resources, and you have to act on all of them until someone says, okay, we can fix this home. We can save your home for you.
Well, that story, not just about facts and figures and interest rates, that's a human story that so many of us are experiencing. You're finding that a lot, Jamel?
Yes, actually, Mrs. Singleton also came through the Wayne County Mortgage Foreclosure Prevention Program. And in her situation, this is a perfect example because she was dealing with the collections department. And this is a perfect example of what Greg was talking about. We were able to contact the loss mitigation department on her behalf and ultimately work out a deal. And even during the time that we were working out the deal, we were negotiating a resolution of her matter so that Mrs. Singleton luckily could and happily could keep her home. The collections department continued to call Mrs. Singleton. So, I guess the lesson to take away from this is there is help. Go to your local housing counseling agency, whether it's Wayne County, Washtenaw County, Lighthouse, any one of the wonderful counseling agencies, and don't give up, because the mission in life for these collections department is to collect the debt. We know how to resolve the matter.
Hey, Greg, that's an important part of it. I mean, a lot of times when people solve their financial problems, their emotional problems are solved as well. But when you're dealing with a counselor, is there some aspect of dealing with people's emotions and maybe their depression, or maybe the fact that they just don't want to get up that day because this is such a huge problem or a burden in their life?
Well, what we've seen, and I think this is true in all the counseling agencies, is exactly what you're talking about. This is not just a financial issue. This is a broad-based issue that affects the marriages. It affects your emotional well-being. We deal with people who come in who are obviously very depressed. We're trained for foreclosure counseling, but we're also trained as to how to hand off to others who are trained in this profession. One of the benefits of working with Wayne County is they've networked with the mental health department of Wayne County, so that we can make referrals to individuals who are suffering from other issues, and we want to steer them in the right direction to get them help.
And encourage people to take that first step. And we can't emphasize enough this new Michigan law, and it's dependent upon the loan holder to contact the loan provider. Is that right, Lorraine?
Yes, and also what Ms. Singleton went through in terms of dealing with the collections department and then the loss mitigation. Under the new law, she wouldn't have to. Right now, what the new law does is that it identifies in this notice that the lender is required to send to the borrower a contact person. This is the person called a designated agent that has the authority to negotiate a loan with you, not to collect, not collections department, but has the authority to negotiate the loan and come with a loan modification. So the new law will resolve that issue as well. I also want to sort of reiterate that the burden, yes, is on the homeowner. The homeowner, once they receive that letter, must contact a housing counselor and a lender. They have 14 days from the date the letter is sent. Because if they don't, and the housing counselor doesn't initiate any kind of contact with the lender is going to assume that they don't want to negotiate, and then would actually then go ahead and proceed right away with foreclosure. So it's really imperative that they do they respond to the letter and contact the housing counselor. And I also want to emphasize that I said the notice is coming from the lender. What we're seeing after the new law has been effective, that this designated agent can also be a law firm. Some of the lenders are contracted with law firms to be their designated agent, so the letter may have the name of the law firm on it, not the lender. So they need to open, the important thing is to open the mail.
Well, the law is in place. There is help available, counselors, there is some hope. When someone goes through the process, Terry, what happens?
When they go through the process, well, the first thing is we bring them in either through group intake or through individual counseling, and that depends on where they are in the process. And once they understand the foreclosure timeline, you can literally see them starting to breathe again. I mean, they are so overwhelmed, they're almost frozen. And what we need to do is get them past that. What they realize very quickly is that no matter where they are in this process, there is still hope. There are still options available to them. We're seeing somebody this week that he is a week out of the end of his redemption period. And we're still going to go to bat for him and still see what we can do. But that's the thing. And things that they can do, we talked a little bit about some things they can do. One of the things, they need to start developing a budget. They need to know what their expenses are, because one of the things that the lender is, if you want to do a loan mod, one of the things that they need to know is what their expenses are, what the client's expenses are, and what have they done to try to reduce those expenses to be able to shift some of their money into helping pay the mortgage. And if they can see some efforts, they're really much more likely to work with you and give you some kind of a loan modification. So when they come in to see us, that's the first thing we do. And in Macomb County, we've had nearly 68% of the people we've seen we've gotten a loan modification for them. And that's because, we've worked with them, helped them get it in line so that they can show good faith.
One of the first steps is to contact the servicer. Greg, you mentioned that earlier. The more information on the servicer in that process, that initial contact.
That can be very positive or it can be very negative. The negative side of it, and I'll get that out of the way, is you call the number that's on that letter that comes, and usually it's the collections department or it is the customer service. And as Jamil was saying, they want their money. And that's basically all you're going to hear. What we encourage people to do is, particularly if you're already delinquent, is you want to talk to the loss mitigation department. The loss mitigation department is the branch of the servicer that will actually work with you to negotiate the workout plan that is allowable by the investor who's purchased the loan. And so you can call the customer service department and request to get into loss mitigation. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. And again, this goes back to what everybody's been saying. One of the benefits of working with a housing counselor is that we have lists of numbers from almost all of the major servicers out there, and even some of the minor ones, that are counselor-only numbers. We cannot give them out to the clients, but we can get on the phone. And I like to tell people, one of the things that we do is we get paid to sit there and listen to elevator music. Because if you're at work, you can't take a half an hour to an hour to wait to get to the right person. And you may get bounced around through the system. So, but if you do call, you want to get to loss mitigation. You want to talk to somebody there, and they're going to tell you, what steps you're going to need to take in order to begin to initiate a plan. And an individual can do this on their own. They don't have to work with a housing counselor. A lot of times they can go to their servicer online and actually download the information. Yeah. And they'll be asked to submit a workout plan, and part of that is going to be the budget and a hardship letter. Those are the two major documents that they're going to need to put together to submit to the servicer.
Is there things that we can do as a community, Jamel, maybe a neighborhood association, a church, other grassroots organizations? How could we help?
Well, I think, and that's why we are doing these outreach seminars and outreach events. Yes, there are things that community groups, that churches and mosques and synagogues and neighborhood organizations can do. Direct individuals to housing counseling agencies such as the Wayne County Mortgage Foreclosure Prevention Program. Any of the organizations that are HUD certified, listed on HUD's website. In fact, the thing is, hope should never be lost. Since October 1st, in the Wayne County Mortgage Foreclosure Prevention Program, we've helped 1,700 families. Now, of those 1,700 families, a number of them were already in the redemption period. And if we look at what the redemption period means, it means that the sheriff's sale has gone forward and they've literally lost title to the home. It's been transferred 99 times out of 100 to the mortgage company. We've been able to pull some of those cases back out of the redemption period, reinstate the mortgage, and modify it so the family can stay in the home. So that's a rarity. We don't want people coming in, at that point. We want them to come in as soon as they miss their first mortgage payment, as soon as they lose their job and think they might lose their first mortgage payment. And that's the message that we want to get out there. And that's the message that these organizations can get out on our behalf, become ambassadors of these programs to bring people into the housing counseling agencies so we can begin to mitigate that situation long before we're looking at redemption period.
So it's early awareness, early action.
Absolutely.
Speaking of very early action, we're talking about the foreclosure process and delinquency. But what about buying a home? Are there things that you can do when you go into the initial transaction, Terry, for example, that you should know to prevent this down the line?
Well, as Catherine mentioned earlier, most of number of agencies, and particularly MSU Extension, offers home buyer education programs. We in Macomb County, we start with what we call affordable home. Are you ready to purchase a home? Is your credit in line? Do you have the resources? Are you those types of things? And then we actually get into what we call our home ownership series, which again is a 6-hour program that walks them through from, yes, I can purchase this home, what's going to happen. We have guest speakers, home inspection, a lawyer, a real estate person, all those people come in and they explain this whole process, what's going to happen in the closing, what should you expect, all of those types of things, so that they're aware going in of what their responsibilities are and what the responsibilities are of the lender, what should happen, so that things don't change. When you get to the closing, there should be no surprises and no blank lines anywhere. And so and that's one of the things that we do. And then another thing that we do, and I know that a lot of the other nonprofits do, is after the fact we offer education to homeowners on money management, on finance, on home maintenance and repair, so that they can keep those homes at the value and not let them get run down. So there's a lot of programs out there to assist people in the home buying process.
All right, we're going to take one last break. You're watching Facing the Mortgage Crisis.
Thank you for calling United Way 211. How may I help you?
To people that are reluctant or embarrassed to call for help, I would say, please don't be. When you call 211, all of your calls are confidential. They're anonymous. When you call us, you will receive a professional, trained information and referral associate who's empathetic and trained to assess your needs in a non-judgmental way.
Okay, what I'm going to do is look up general counseling in that area, and I'll be able to give you their contact information.
You want to make them feel comfortable, that they can tell you just about anything. And if we ask certain things like, well, how are you doing with food and clothing, then it kind of like clicks in their head, oh yes, I do need food. My children do need clothing. I need clothing. School's starting. Do you have any information? They start asking more questions. And then they kind of feel comfortable with us asking them certain questions.
But the DHS office may be able to offer some financial assistance.
Our mission and our vision is to empower the community with opportunities that will lead to healthier lives.
And welcome back to Facing the Mortgage Crisis. Rejoining our panel are Steve Bancroft, Executive Director, Detroit Foreclosure Prevention and Response, and Steve Tabachman, Co-Director, Michigan Foreclosure Task Force. Steve Tabachman, let me start with you. I want to talk about measurables here as we conclude this program. How are we going to know when we're starting to make a positive difference?
Well, I think there are several metrics that we've been tracking. The number of foreclosure filings, the number of actual foreclosures, the counseling numbers that you heard about today as we see the success rate grow with that, the number of loan modifications, not just loan modifications, but the types of loan modifications. So loan modifications in and of themselves, if we see borrowers with heavier balances and heavier monthly payments, that's not really a victory. So we want to see loan modifications that keep people in their homes. And ultimately, for a lot of communities, even at the end of the day, most people won't be in foreclosure in the state of Michigan, but everybody will be impacted by this crisis. And so at the end of the day, property values and vacancy rates, blight, those are the kinds of issues that we all care about and that we will all be judged on when we begin to have the kind of success that begins to turn this crisis.
Now, many folks may have not seen this coming, but we certainly see it now. Are we doomed to repeat this?
I hope not. We're working in our office very diligently with national organizations, other cities, other entities, to not only try to understand what undertook this thing, but also how to make sure we don't do it again. More importantly, though, I think, is in the process of this, it's a constantly changing field. I'll just tell you that. Those of us who thought we understood this field a year ago have discovered there have been parts of it that have come up that we had not anticipated, things that were not thought about, and it's an ongoing thing. So even though you may, in this course of this conversation, hear daunting numbers and difficulty, maybe not enough counselors here or so forth, the fact of the matter is it's changing because there are people willing to work at trying to solve the problem and are coming up with new solutions, new concepts, and improved abilities. One of the things, for example, I think is very important is when the Obama concept came out, there were aspects about it, it looked good up front, but there were aspects about it that had some questions. Within the matter of the last just 2 months, they've made big changes in the regulations that are outlining that if you thought you weren't going to be helped a month ago, you ought to look again because now it's better. And it's constantly improving the process for getting things done so that we can stop this sooner than later.
Fred, I think it's important, though. Your question is, are we doing everything to make sure this doesn't happen again? And in Michigan, we can't say yes today. And that's because that fourth leg of the school, that predatory lending protection that 25 other states offer, we have got to get that in place, or we're likely going to be right back where we started 5 years from now.
Well, at Lighthouse, what do you look for every day when you go in that says to you, Greg, we're going to make a difference? Things are getting better.
I look at the tenacity and the compassion of the counselors that we have, and the dedication that they have to working with the clients. They look for hope. They look to try to help that client that comes in and is basically hopeless. They're overwhelmed. They don't know what to do, and to convey to them the fact that as they work with us, we're going to do everything we can to help you, whether it's trying to keep you in the home or helping you to realize that you really need to make the decision that this is not a place that you can keep, and then do it in a dignified way. So I look at our staff, and I told them in a staff meeting yesterday, I said, I'm so proud of you. I can go anywhere in the state, and Lighthouse has a reputation statewide, and it's because of the staff we have, and that dedication to helping people. We have to be careful that we don't get too emotionally tied with the clients and take it home, because the job is almost overwhelming at times. But I think all of the agencies, I think of what MSUE is doing and the counselors down that are working with Wayne County, there is that tenacity to say, we want to help you. We want to give you some hope. We're not going to give up. We've had counselors that come in and say, I want to work only with people who are having sheriff sales because I'm dedicated to try to stop somebody at the last minute and keep them in their home.
Jamel, final thoughts? Do we have a shot at this? Is there hope?
Absolutely, absolutely. With programs such as ours and the website, the fightmortgageforeclosure.com, the online intake process, we can show measurable results. We can show that housing counseling absolutely works. Mm-hmm. We monitor and audit every file. We know exactly what's happening, and that's something that we can absolutely show.
Lorraine, what role does HUD play in all this? We've mentioned it a few times. How important is HUD?
Well, HUD, the HUD counselors are the ones that are certified. They're state regulated certified counselors such as MSHDA or HUD. And so that's one thing I think we were talking about, that under the new law, they had to either be a HUD certified counselor or a MSHDA, a state housing authority certified counselor. But what I would like to add, though, is that I think in terms of hope, I think the landscape has changed a little bit with this new law. I mean, earlier Greg mentioned about the notices would go out with maybe a letter to a collections department. But that's not the case now, and I think people have to be reminded that that notice that goes out will have the name and number of a direct line to the person who has the authority to do that. And so I think it's important to remember that the landscape has changed. And also one final thing I wanted to comment on is that there's another player as well in this whole community of foreclosure prevention specialists and the legal services attorneys. And we've been working along in a collaborative way with the housing counselors and the system. The statewide project, which I belong to, the Michigan Foreclosure Prevention Project, is a legal services project where if the housing counselor identified this case as a legal case with a sheriff's sale or any other legal issues, if it's a bad loan, they have a direct pipeline into the legal services, the local legal aid office, for the homeowner to get free legal representation. So I just wanted to mention that.
We are out of time. I want to thank all of our panelists for their time and help in this program. Your expertise has been invaluable, and we hope that folks have gotten a lot from this program. If you have questions at home about your home mortgage, United Way operators are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 211. Again, that phone number is 211. For all of us here, we hope you found some help in facing the mortgage crisis. Good night.
Funding for Facing the Mortgage Crisis was provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Facing the Mortgage Crisis is a national initiative presented locally by Michigan Radio, WDET, and Detroit Public Television.